Hi, Lakeview. Welcome to July's Spiritual Formation Moment. A few years ago, I did a program where I was trained to be a spiritual director. The program I took was offered through the Catholic diocese, and so most of the students were Catholic. And for the first time in my life, I found myself in a group of Jesus followers with a completely different accent than mine. What I meant by one word seemed to be different than what they meant by the same word. I would think knew what was going on in a conversation, and then something would be said, and I would realize that in reality, I was missing a big chunk of information. One of the words that they spoke with a different accent was the word prayer. They clearly meant something different by it than I did. Being a good evangelical, my definition of prayer was a specific time set aside to engage my mind in the activity of prayer, which was understanding something about faith or talking to God, telling Him what I thought or asking for the things I needed. It was mainly a cognitive pursuit, something I engaged my mind in. But when I heard my cohorts talk about prayer, I understood that they meant much more than just a time of prayer set aside each day to talk to God. Prayer for them was their whole life. The word meant not just time set aside, but a relationship they considered to be the basis of their whole life. Their relationship with God, who was present in their waking and sleeping, their work and family life, their eating and planning, all of the exciting and boring parts of their lives. All of it was prayer because all of it was done in God's presence. One of our teachers offered this tidbit: fish swim, birds fly, we pray. And in Acts 12, Paul echoes this by saying, in Him, in God, we live and move and have our being. In other words, there is no life apart from God. And whether we recognize God or not, everything we do is in God's presence. When we do recognize God in all we do, that is prayer. Prayer is recognizing capital R reality. Brother Lawrence, a monk who lived in the 17th century and wrote the well-known text, Practicing the Presence of God, penned these words: think often on God, by day, by night, in your business, and even in your diversions. He is always near you and with you. Leave Him not alone. Our whole lives can be done in communion with God. Now, that's a really nice way to think about prayer, but most of us struggle all the time or time to time to pray without ceasing or to allow our whole lives to be prayer. And that's okay, because prayer is a journey. Just as our intimate relationships take time to develop, and just as they require different kinds of attention at different times of life, so does our prayer life, our life with God. Some of us at our stage in the journey need to have concrete ways to pray. We need to structure prayer time into our lives and engage our minds. Some of us have been praying that way for years, and it's time to learn to pray in other ways. Or perhaps we have entered a time of life or a situation where words just don't make sense, and so we desire ways to pray without words. Or maybe we're tired and worn out, or so anxious that coming up with words for the mess we find within and without is just more than we can handle. The point is that prayer, and therefore God, can inhabit our lives no matter what is happening. So I could go on and on about what prayer is and how we can practice it, but I'll leave you with just one more thought before I move on to the practices that you're invited to try for the month of July. One of my favorite books on prayer, which I have read and reread over the last 22 years, is the book by Henry Nouwen entitled With Open Hands. He compares prayer to the process of opening up our clenched fists to allow God to see all that we cling tightly to, things we are afraid to let go of, thinking if we lose them, we will lose an essential part of ourselves. This is what he says. Prayer is no easy matter. It demands a relationship in which you allow someone other than yourself to enter into the very center of your person, to see there what you would rather leave in darkness, and to touch there what you would rather leave untouched. And I think this is the reason we often avoid prayer, because we know eventually, if we continue the journey, we will be invited to pull back the curtain on our true selves and show God the whole messy, naked thing. But as Nouwen reminds us, this is the path to live life freely, to let go of those things we think we need that turn out to be compulsions that just keep us from living well and deeply. So perhaps one of the best encouragements I can offer you as you learn about and practice prayer is this: God's love for you and for this world far exceeds any mess or shame or hidden thing in you. Open up those clenched fists. So, here are the practices you can use to open up those fists for this month. This week, week 1, choose one thing that you will pray about every day. It might be a situation or a person. Could I suggest that the thing you least want God to see or get involved in, or the thing that you feel most disappointed about, is just the thing you should pray for? Just a suggestion. And use this request as a meeting place with God. Perhaps God will answer the prayer the way you hope. Maybe God will answer the prayer in a way that you couldn't have imagined. Maybe God won't seem to have even heard the request. But I bet you will find that somehow praying about that one thing does something to form you and your relationship with God. I have a friend with whom I regularly meet for coffee. And when we plan a meetup, he always says, "Same place as always?" To which I always reply, "Yep, see you there." And there are situations in my life that bubble up again and again where I know I will be invited yet again to trust God and enter into that situation totally reliant on grace. Every time that situation bubbles back up, it's like God is saying, "Same place as always?" The situation never resolves. I doubt it ever will. And I used to hope that it would, but now I just take it as a cue that I will get to experience God in a new way and say to God, "Yep, see you there." So, one thing, pray about it every day. That kid, that need, that situation, that heartbreak, that joy, that disappointment. Same place with God every day. See what happens. Week 2, you're invited to pray with a structure. If you're new to regular prayer, this is a great way to learn how to pray because it's easy to understand and easy to do. The one that I often use is the one Anne Lamott taught me. Help, thanks, wow. It's pretty self-explanatory. First, tell God what you need help with. I need patience, I need money, I need wisdom. Whatever it is you need, ask God for it. Tell God about it. After that, thank God for the good things in your life. Thank you for my home. Thank you for today. Thank you for the summer. Thank you for my dog. And finally, wow. Wow, God, that sunset. You are amazing. Wow, God, look what you did with my kid, even when I messed it up so colossally. Wow, God, look at all the people joining in marching, asking for racial equality. Wow. Here's the challenge. Start and end every day with help, thanks, wow. You might spend a long time in prayer some days, and other days only short times, but let the structure help you create a rhythm that bookends your day. Week 3, you're invited to try centering prayer. If you missed my directions on how to do that, we've included the link in the description below where I give instructions on how to practice centering prayer. Basically, it's a way of engaging our hearts, bodies, and minds in stillness in order to stay present to God's loving presence. It's a way of praying that helps dislodge the ways we manage and control life, habits that really just keep us from living freely in the world. And finally, in the last week of July, you're invited to pray with someone. Pray with your partner or spouse, pray with your children, ask a friend to pray with you, pray out loud in your home church or with your family. Or if a situation arises that you aren't sure how to navigate, suggest prayer. Praying together can be hard because it is a very vulnerable act. It not only opens us up to God, but also opens us up to one another. So it's okay if you feel uncomfortable. You don't have to make it fancy or use special words. You can keep it simple and short, but I encourage you to try it. Week 4, pray with someone. Pray together. So, 4 invitations. Week 1, pray about one thing. Week 2, pray with a structure like help, thanks, wow. Week 3, try centering prayer. And week 4, pray with someone. Again, if you find one of these practices is working for you, stay with it. Don't get discouraged because you can't do all of the practices. Do what works. And if you start to lose your way, don't self-flagellate. Just pick yourself up and try again. Remember that if everything we do can be prayer, even losing our way and finding our way back can be prayer. Have a great month.